bit angry at the end of the night. And when it hurts, it fucking stings, but you're the only one who puts up with me. So I'll stick around if you'll stick around. You always win. When I am wrong, well, I always am.
Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of From Beyond the Arc. It has been 2 years since our last episode and I decided to change things up a bit. I wanted to pivot from talking exclusively about NBA basketball to something encompassing interests from all fields and disciplines, to share assorted knowledge from people who have dedicated years to their craft. So in this episode, I'm excited to kick things off with an artist, musician, independent publisher, school teacher, and most notably, a dear friend of mine, Christopher Gyorgyovich, who has been releasing music and zines under the moniker Roman Candles for over a decade plus. Chris, how you doing?
I'm good, Ian. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm happy to be here, happy to chat with you.
The song we just played is track 1, titled When We Fight, off the new album, The Daily Reminder of My Failed Folk Career. I guess we can start from when you first started playing music and wanting to be in a band.
Yeah, when I was in high school, my sister got me a job at Dairy Queen. I ended up working with this kid, Hector Figueroa, who was 3 or 4 years older than me. And any downtime at work, he would be like practicing drums because he was going to try out for a local band called As Night Falls. They needed a new drummer. And I remember just talking to him about wanting to play music and be in a band, wanting to go on tour. And he had told me that it's never too late to learn an instrument. You can learn whatever instrument you want. I didn't start playing drums until I was 16. You should take music lessons. And shortly after that conversation, I remember I had started taking piano lessons, but there was like a steep learning curve with piano because I was learning an instrument for the first time. And I'm also trying to learn how to read sheet music. And I think there was like a level of embarrassment because I already had friends that were playing in bands that could play instruments. And when I would show up to like piano lessons, the people in front of me or coming in after the room after me would be like children, 7, 8, 9-year-old children. And I'm essentially playing like the same like Hot Cross Buns songs as them.
The friends that were in bands that you saw that you felt embarrassed for learning music so late, what bands was that?
It would have been like Media Blitz and SRT, not just Riley and Jason, but like Greg and Jeff Johnson, be able to play guitar and bass.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know, I was just inspired by like kids our age making music.
How did you land on piano? Did someone tell you like this is the fundamentals of music, you need to learn piano?
Yeah, I think it was my dad was like, everything's going to be easier if you know how to play piano. If you can play piano, you can learn anything else, which maybe there's some truth to it. I still think there's significant learning curves for every instrument. I spent 3 years learning trumpet as an adult. Besides understanding sheet music, I can't necessarily say that like maybe like timing and melody, like a little bit piano helped, but it certainly doesn't help with like lung capacity or like being able to blow on a horn.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just completely different. Learning trumpet was really felt like in certain ways learning music for the first time again. Because it was really challenging. There was this guy, Pete Gamber in Rancho Cucamonga. He's in his 70s, but he became like one of my best friends while I was living out there in Pomona. He's just a really nice guy, really talented musician and like really good teacher.
When did you pick up the guitar again and start writing music, just trying to make something of your own?
Honestly, you were probably the first person I played music with. It would have been our senior year in high school. I think you came over with an acoustic guitar. And at that time, because I was taking piano lessons and playing piano, I had bought like an accordion out of the penny saver. Yeah, me and my dad, we went to like someone's house and I bought an accordion. And then I really liked that band, Dusty Rhodes and the River Band at the time. And I think you were the first person I ever played music with. It was that for a while. And eventually, like, I started Roman Candles and I was playing accordion in like the initial run of that band. But it was challenging because, like, I was writing the lyrics and had melodies, but I wasn't proficient enough to be like writing the guitar parts for the songs. So they didn't always fit. Riley did his best for me to be like, this is what I have. Like, could you try to write guitar chords for this? And I think he did a pretty good job considering that's like not an ideal dynamic for like writing music. To answer your question, when I like really started playing guitar and writing songs on my own was when I moved up to Berkeley, as I brought a guitar with me. And that's when I like got better at guitar because I started playing every single day. I was living in a dorm. So this would have been like 2009 and 2010, like that school year.
You knew you were going up north to Berkeley right after you finished.
So we graduated in 2007, and then I went to community college for 2 years. In 2008 is when I started Roman Candles with Riley.
Okay.
So yeah, maybe the fall of 2008, we started writing songs and we played our first show. We recorded like our first demo with Jeff Salisbury, who now sings in that like kind of crossover band Skullcrack. He played drums in Riley's band Thought Process with Riley and Franklin, and he played drums in Media Blitz later on.
Gotcha.
But yeah, he's a singer of that band Skullcrack now, and they've put out records on Indecision. But yeah, we recorded our first demo with him because Riley was like playing in Thought Process with him at the time.
Yeah. That was a tape with Show Me the Way to Go Home.
Yeah, exactly. I just remember like having a really positive experience that day, and Calvin had driven up because Calvin had just started school at UC San Diego and was doing a radio show on KSDT, which was like the college radio station. And Calvin took our demo home, like a CDR recording of our demo home that night, and then played like the songs. We got to like listen to it on the radio. It was like felt really cool.
Yeah, no, that's an insane feeling.
Yeah, totally. And we played our first show in December of 2008.
And that was with Limbeck and Costa Mesa, right?
Yeah, exactly. Limbeck and then Rachel Cantu, who like sings backup vocals on a couple of their recordings, played support, and we opened. They thought they were helping out a touring band called the Roman Candles. So I think they thought they were like doing someone a favor. But turned out once we talked to them on that show, we're like, oh no, we're not on tour. Yeah, we're just from up the street. But
It was like an art gallery, right? Type thing?
yeah, it doesn't exist anymore, but it was called EvoCal.
That's what it was.
It ended up turning into like a bar, and Cole put on like a few Black Pelican shows at the bar. I think the name of the bar was the Avalon, but it could be mistaken.
Yeah.
But yeah, Cole ended up doing like a few shows there that did really well.
Okay, so first show 2008. What's in your head after playing the first show?
So we had recorded the demo, we played the first show, but the demo hadn't come out yet. So I just wanted to put out a cassette tape. There was a band from Garden Grove called AM that had put out a tape called 1998, and I just really liked the way it looked, having a proper like cassette tape demo, and I always thought that was cool. I just wanted to have a demo out. And then we played our second show in January, so just a month later of 2009, and by that time the tape was out.
That was the first tour, right?
It all happened within like 6 months, starting the band, recording, putting out a demo tape, and going on the first tour with you and Calvin and Riley. We went on that tour in July of 2009, and it was kind of broken up into two different legs where we got out to Mississippi on the first leg, and then the second leg we did the West Coast coming down from Washington with John Padaky instead of Riley. And by the time that tour had happened, we had put out a second demo tape, and you have like 3 songs on that demo tape. Read Books, Make Art tape was the name of that demo.
Okay. Because I haven't reflected on that tour and that time since now. How was that for you?
I mean, I like really wanted to be in a band and really wanted to be on tour. And unfortunately, I don't know that it was a success outside of the fact that like looking back on it now, it's like I got to play with Abe Vigoda in Mississippi. I got to play with Wingnut Dishwashers Union at a vegan cafe in Seattle. I got to play with Mika Miko and Audacity in San Luis Obispo. Like I felt like I was playing with real bands, and
Yeah.
playing real shows. There were other shows, like I played in Spokane, and looking back on it, I didn't realize that the connections I was making, or that people would hit me up and be like, "Oh, I saw you in Spokane in 2009." Even though like it wasn't a perfect tour, it was, for me, I think overwhelmingly a positive experience, especially because like I just was more motivated to like tour again. I was like, okay, like I can book it. But I think I can do it better, you know?
I agree. It's like I wanted to do too is just be on the road and tour and play shows. That was always a dream when we were in high school or back when we started. It's like the
Hmm.
reason why you write these songs is so you can play them in front of people and tour. So I think in that aspect, I think it was a success, even though there was a ton of shit. I mean, like
Yeah.
no one knew you booked the entire thing. No one knew we went in a fucking Dodge, whatever was
Yeah.
Riley's car for the
Mhm.
first leg. And that's no small feat. And I think I gauged it as a success, even though there was a ton of disagreements and up and downs. And like to make it as far as Mississippi is pretty wild.
I think because I stuck with it and continued touring in the future, the tours ended up better and better each time. Then I can only think of it as a positive. And like, the few shows that I did get to play, to be able to play with bands that I'm still stoked on, like almost 15 years later, it's like, oh man, I can't believe I got to play with that band or play that show. So yeah, I'm really happy that like I was able to do that tour, and I was like seeing places I'd never seen before, like New Orleans, Louisiana, and all these places I'd never been. So I think at the time it was like everything I wanted it to be.
For sure. It just gave you the bug. This is
Mhm.
kind of what I should be doing. This is what I want to be doing.
Yeah, exactly.
So, like finishing that tour out, what's next after the second tape?
Then I ended up moving up to Berkeley like right after that. We had had some friends from high school that were already living there. So before I moved up, I ended up like that summer after we got back from the tour, I went up to Berkeley just to visit. And Christopher Torres and Max Reich came on that trip. And Christopher Torres especially had shown interest in like, hey, if you want to keep the band going, like I'd be happy to play whatever you want. I don't know. I guess I was like really taken by that, or like thankful for him offering. And Max said the same thing. And so yeah, they basically agreed to help me like continue the band. And so I came home for Thanksgiving break that fall in 2009, and we played our first show with just me, Christopher, and Max. And that was still like just acoustic. But then when I came home for winter break a month later, we played our first show as a full band with Zach. Yeah, within the first year of Roman Candles, from like our first show to our first show as a full band with Christopher and Max and Zach, that was only like a 1 year period.
And Zach was on drums, Max was on bass.
Yeah, and then Christopher was playing lead guitar parts, and I was playing
Gotcha.
guitar.
Okay.
So yeah, I would say like in that first few months of living at Berkeley, like I wrote the first few Roman Candle songs on guitar, and those songs ended up becoming like the first two 7 inches.
Which is whatever happened to VBK
Yeah,
and
and then the
Gracious
Gracious
Living.
Living. So like those
Okay.
4 songs were like 4 out of the 5 first songs that I ever wrote on guitar.
Did all of it make the Riley vs. Jason LP?
Out of those 4 songs, just the Gracious Living.
Gotcha. Okay, okay.
Re-recorded that like an acoustic version for the full length. And so yeah, I guess like I was writing from like the very beginning. Once I moved up to Berkeley, I just started playing guitar and was just trying to write songs. But it's a learning how to write a song takes years. I mean, some people I feel like pick it up quicker than others, but I always felt like behind a little bit because I feel like a lot of other people had like high school bands and stuff that they were able to like, have all their most embarrassing moments
Yeah.
on. But yeah, I just ended up starting a little bit later. And because I've never changed the name, unfortunately for me, all of those embarrassing moments are still like kind of easy to find.
I mean, that's even like Miles Davis quoted, like, takes years for you to play like yourself.
Hmm.
Just looking at your Bandcamp from 2010 to 2023, it's like very true. I remember thinking of it before doing this, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to listen to everything Chris has done.
Some of
And
it
I,
is rough.
and I like pictured me talking to you. I wonder how Chris would feel listening to this right now. And I'm just like, he would probably be mortified and just like not want to listen to this. Do you think that's
Yeah, I would say that's like probably pretty accurate. Certainly wouldn't want to listen to it, but it's like I'm glad that it exists. I'm glad that I don't know that I was like trying, but yeah, I'm not particularly proud of most of that stuff. I wasn't like very selective in terms of like recording to be like, I don't need to actually put this out. I wish I had been more selective.
Whether it's 2010, 2009, or 2012, you're technically putting out the work that you feel is the best you can do at that point in time that you can put out into the world. So it's more important that you put it out rather than just like sitting on it, even though
No,
it is
totally.
like awful to hear back. Same with me. Like I'll look at stuff I did 10 years ago and just like cringe and like, oh my God. I mean, I'll do that to stuff I like made yesterday or like last week. So I don't think that ever is like a
Goes
thing
away.
that, yeah.
No, totally. I would say, yeah, and that's the other thing. I was like, yeah, those were the best songs I could write at the time. I know that just being a better guitar player, learning how to like sing a little bit better, even if I were to record the exact same songs on that first album, like it would just sound better now because of becoming a better musician or because of learning how to record a little bit better. Like even with the first 7-inch that we put out, the Whatever Happened to BBK, I didn't know that like you are supposed to get your songs mastered.
Yeah.
Like that 7-inch isn't mastered,
Yeah.
which is crazy to me. Like I would just never do that, but it's like we recorded it with Madison. He kind of mixed it in whatever, ability that he had at the time. And then we just sent it to the pressing plant. And just is funny, like we were just learning as we went. And for the second 7-inch that Madison recorded, he was like, hey, I think that you should get this one mastered. Like it will sound louder and better. And I was like, oh, like I didn't even know that was an option. Like, who do I ask about mastering it? He's like, don't worry, like I'm gonna email my friend, he'll master it. And I was like, oh, then like, yeah, of course, let's master it.
Did he record the first one?
Yeah, so I guess anything I put out on vinyl has been recorded with Madison. That first 7-inch we recorded in 2010. So I've been like recording with Madison for a long time now. And I feel like his recording skills have only gotten better over the last like 10, 13 years, I guess. He now has that studio in Anaheim Paradise that he runs with Colin Knight, and they do their recording there. But like originally, the first few things that I ever recorded with Madison were just recorded in his bedroom at his parents' house. Like I know they recorded the first Fury demo in the bedroom at Madison's parents' house. So there was a lot of stuff that was being recorded there at the time.
All right, so we're going to play another song, and it is track 2 off of the album, and the song is called I Miss You.
I miss you the most when you're the closest. Tired and angry, stubborn and touchy. I miss you the most when you sleep on the couch. Oh, I love you more than I love myself. I miss you the most when you don't feel like talking. I miss you the most when you leave the house. I miss you the most when you won't hold my hand. I miss you the most when you don't understand. If it was easy to apologize, I'd say sorry almost every time. I miss you the most when you're the closest. Tired and angry. Will you ever forgive me?
By the time that 7-inch came out, I was living back at home. Actually, I remember the night of the record release show, I was student teaching at El Dorado, and that was back to school night. I didn't know when I booked the show that I was booking it on back to school night, but yeah, I had to like go and dress up and do the back to school night speech for all the parents, and then I left back to school night to go play that show.
Where was that show at?
It was at Burger Records It was with Canyons, so Jeremy Leisure's band, and Jeremy plays piano on the last song on the new record, and Media Blitz played, and then Chris, who ran Planet X Records, had a band called Tooth Soup that was on tour, and they played that show as well. And then at that show, he said, if you ever record again in the future, like send it to me. I'd love to hear it. And so just a few months later, me and Maddie recorded the Riley versus Jason album. And then I sent it to Chris, and then he offered to help put it out on Planet X.
Because I feel like the first few years of Roman Candles was like, you're obviously writing songs, you're figuring it out, but you played in Santa Ana.
I remember.
I forget which show your singing voice changed, and I feel like you found your voice, as corny as it sounds. I was like, damn, this is like.
I get it because it took me a while. I remember what show that was. I had written like a Yorba scene report for Maximum Rock and Roll, and Cole took all the photos, and we had a release for the magazine at Mass Media Records, which was a record store in Santa Ana. And I remember you coming to that. By that point, the Riley versus Jason had just come out. Like, I think I had played the record release show for that record maybe a week or two before. That was the first time anyone ever offered to put out a record for me. And so it was the first time like anyone ever validated. And I think because of that, there was like a certain level of like confidence singing and playing and writing songs that happened, where I feel like the stuff that I recorded after Riley versus Jason, I think there was like a huge boost in confidence just of someone saying like, yeah, I like what you're doing,
Yeah, man, that's huge.
Unfortunately, in like 2017, there were some sexual abuse allegations, and that record label no longer exists. So yeah, I like pulled the songs from that record label. But at the time, it was like one of my favorite record labels. He put out the Paul Baraboo stuff and Early Against Me, P and HHA and Defiance, Ohio. A lot of folk punk and a lot of pop punk stuff that I really loved. So
yeah, dang, I did not know that. That's crazy.
That was the first Roman Candles full-length record.
And there's a lot of songs on that.
Because some of them like had been from demos and 7-inches and stuff that had come out before. So I had been writing, really it was like a culmination of songs I had been writing since like I first moved up to Berkeley in 2009.
No, for sure. And I mean, Gracious Living made the cut, which was on one of the first 7-inches.
Yeah.
And yeah, because I was like, damn it. Going again to like everyone improving their skill set and Madison and all that. Like I thought it was a completely different song when I came across it again, but I knew the lyrics. So I was like, damn, he's singing about the same thing. And then it took me a second to be like, oh, it's the same exact fucking song. But like hearing it off of Riley versus Jason versus the 7-inch is like day and night. I was like, I thought it was a completely new song, but it's the same song. I was like, well, that makes sense. That's kind of progression of artists to like take their songs and put it on a full length.
Yeah, totally.
You're in bands, you're making music, you're putting out tapes. You're essentially like living the dream of like a kid, of like your younger self. But you're also super dedicated to education and student teacher at the time before the record release. Did you know while going to community college and then choosing Berkeley, did you know you were going to be a teacher? Did you have like certain things that you thought you were working towards that kind of shifted?
Yeah, I think originally I knew I wanted to study history. It probably wasn't until I was at Berkeley that it was my parents that kind of encouraged me to do the teaching credential program and end up teaching. I'm glad they did. I've been able to travel with it too. Like I was able to teach as a Peace Corps volunteer in Columbia for 2 years. And
that experience being in Columbia for 2 years teaching English, was it like jarring or was it?
Looking back, it was the best thing.
Yeah.
Best decision I ever made. I got to learn Spanish. I got to travel all over like Central and South America, and I fell in love. Yeah, it changed my life for like the better.
This is outside of this, but weren't you like showing skate videos?
Yeah, so in Peace Corps, they try to encourage volunteers to have secondary projects.
Yeah.
And so my secondary project, the idea is to like fill a need in your community. And there were 2 kids skateboarding one day, like on a Friday afternoon in my town. And I started talking to them and I was like, I have my skateboard. Like, I'd love to skateboard with you guys. And they're like, oh, yeah, let's meet up next Friday. And then from there, we started skateboarding in like the town square and the plaza every Friday. And it went from like me and these two kids having skateboards in town to all of a sudden like 17 kids had skateboards in this pretty small town. We were skateboarding like every weekend, and then it wasn't just Friday nights, it was Friday and Saturday nights. And then they built like rails. So they had like a real small one and then one that was like a little bit taller. And so they had two different rails and it turned into like this really nice thing. And we were just like turning people onto skateboarding. And I think I showed like Dogtown and Z Boys, but like I rented out a room and we got the speakers and the screen and it was like a whole thing. The mayor had to approve it.
Dude,
And it was like
I love that.
it was like an event. I made like a flyer for it and yeah, it was really cool. I think like 25 kids came out to watch Dogtown and Z Boys. And then like they all like as soon as the movie was over, they all went back to the plaza and they were doing like burts and stuff like on the ground, which they had never like done before. I think they were like thinking of skateboarding more as surfing. It was really cool. And we did like another documentary showing of the Bones Brigade autobiography. It was a really positive experience.
Yeah.
And I remember like when I finished my Peace Corps service, I was friends with a lot of them on Facebook. And I just remember like one of the kids 6 months later had like posted like him skating a line where he like ollied up the curb, pushed down the sidewalk, and then kick flipped off the curb and kept going. And I was just like, it wasn't like a long line, but it was like, whoa, they're like putting stuff together and felt really good.
So the next song we're going to get into is titled Up on the Roof, and it is track 3. And this is actually one of 2 songs from the album that Chris wrote years ago while in Colombia during his Peace Corps service. So here it is.
Took me by the hand, said, have you ever been up on the roof, up on the roof? That's where I fell in love with you. Stuck on the roof as it started to rain. You zipped me inside your jacket as the storm rolled in. Oh, up on the roof, up on the roof, that's when I knew that I was in love, or falling in love with you. Hard on the mouth, you whispered everything's gonna be so much better now. Up on the roof, up on the roof, that's when I knew that I was in love, or falling in love.
Your time there, did you have a guitar or anything? I know you had a skateboard, but did you have a
Yeah.
guitar?
So
Okay.
I brought a guitar with me too, just an acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
And I would say that like the Can I Kiss You record, which is the second one, most of those songs I wrote while I was living in Colombia. Like probably maybe 4 or 5 I had before that, but most of that record was written while I was living there. And I would I would play guitar every single day. I was just trying to write songs.
So you come back after 2 years of doing the Peace Corps, teaching English in Colombia. You come back home, right? Because I remember meeting you and Riley in LA before a show at the Hi-Hat. And I think
Yes.
that's the first
Yeah,
time I saw
exactly.
you, probably since you left. You wrote the songs in Colombia, but you obviously recorded them once you got back.
Yeah, so I got back in November, like 2 days before Thanksgiving in 2016, and then me and Madison recorded that record in December.
Okay.
like almost like right away when I got back. Yeah, at that point, like I'd been playing like the songs in that order, like just the album, like every day in my bedroom for months.
Dude.
So it's like when I went in to record, like almost everything's first take. And so yeah, I just knew the record. I just like recorded it very quickly.
Yeah.
I think we did all 14 songs in one day. We might have gone back a second day to like fix like something, but I'm not at this point, I don't really remember. But it was for the most part, all 14 songs were done in a day.
Was it still at Madison's house or was he at?
That one was at Paradise. So like
Okay.
he had just started renting the space like right before I left for Peace Corps.
Uh-huh.
While I was there, they had tried doing a few shows there, but then decided like it was just going to be a recording studio. And I think they had started recording different things while I was there. But yeah, for the most part, it's just me and acoustic guitar and vocals.
Gotcha. No band, just acoustic guitar. It reminded me of like Paul Baraboo or something like that, you know? And I got that vibe re-listening to it. But you put me on to that guy, and and also like Aaron Ross. There's a few people that I'll still like listen to today because you like showed me them.
That's cool. Yeah, I can tell you those were both influences. And then at the time, like right before we got back from Peace Corps, Connor Oberst had put out that solo album, like Ruminations, where it's just him at piano and harmonica. And, like those songs were really stripped down, and I really liked that record, and I remember that being an influence too.
I'm gonna write that down because I need to listen to that.
Yeah, it was not. It was just like where most of the Bright Eyes albums are like big production, and even like previous solo records have full bands and stuff on it. But that record in particular was just him and an acoustic guitar and a piano and harmonica.
I find it interesting because to see you continually putting stuff out from, 2010 to like present day is pretty sick.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool to look at like a back catalog of stuff and like see the progression over time. And I'm like really happy with the way the new record sounds and it being a full band thing and having friends like having played on it. It feels like a lot better and it feels a lot like bigger sounding. And the first two songs that I recorded with Madison for it, like I just remember feeling like really good about it.
What was the first two songs?
It turned out to be the first two songs on the record just by happenstance, but the When We Fight and I Miss You. We recorded those two songs in July of 2020, like while the pandemic was still going on and we were like wearing masks and stuff in the studio and it was super hot because it was July. But yeah, we recorded both of those songs in a day and it felt really good. And then I had hit him up like a few months later and was like, would you want to do two more? And then we just kind of did like the first 6 or 7 songs like that. And then he had gotten a new job and got really busy with work. And he was like, hey, you should ask Garrett Labonte about finishing the record. I think Garrett would do it with you. And I think Garrett would do a really good job. And when I reached out to Garrett, he was super helpful and down. And I think the songs that Garrett helped record sound great as well. This record feels really good just because a lot of people helped and I got to like make it with a lot of different friends.
When you first recorded When We Fight and I Miss You, did you know that it was going to be for an album or you just kind of wanted to record something?
I had enough songs for a record, but I wasn't thinking of it in terms of a record. Like I just thought maybe I would do another 7-inch, like maybe someone would want to put out a 7-inch or something. Then the recording process turned out to be so nice that I was like, oh, could we do like 2 more?
And Madison was already at Paradise, right? In his studio in Anaheim.
Yeah. So him and Colin were there that day. Colin helped with the recording, but Madison was playing like most of the instruments. And again, it's not kind of like maybe the most ideal way, but I taught Madison a song that day. And then Madison recorded the drums, the bass, and the electric guitar. And then we just like erased the acoustic guitar. It sounds like a scratch track I didn't really like. There is acoustic guitar on the When We Fight song, but I asked Colin to take it off.
Yeah.
Like the way it sounded, but
so then the whole year you're just living the dream in Budapest, doing your thing, you and Barbara, and then you come back, but the record's not finished yet. It's recorded, but it's not finished. So you get back to Southern California and you're finishing the record. What's left to do before you release? Because you just technically released it.
Yeah, like a little over a week ago. I would say
Okay.
like when we got back, the only thing left to do was to do the layout for it and then print the actual tape or press the tapes. Otherwise, like it had been mixed and mastered and the artwork was done. We had decided on the artwork, but
Who did the artwork?
Michael Reinhardt, who he's done the artwork for like all 3 LPs now.
Okay.
Yeah, I just always really loved his artwork. He played in Bronca Tatanka and Table Fruit and Feeding People, and yeah, he's like one of my favorite artists. So it's like it was cool to have him do the artwork. For this one, he had a couple kids, like I think he's had 2 kids now. So I don't think he could like create something original, but he sent me like a few different pieces that were already done and he was like, "Do you like any of these or would any of these make sense?" And this Satan goat fit the theme.
With the flowers in the back, and there's
Yeah,
like
and the cute little bunny.
yeah. And the company or person that you did to go through the cassette tapes, is this the same that you've been using or is it someone new?
This person did the very first 2 Roman Candles tapes. He works out of Pasadena. The name of the company is Cassette Works, but it has like a larger company name called like M2 Communications. But yeah, it's just a guy, Michael, who does stuff out of his house. He's like an older guy, but he does like the imprinting on the shells and makes them look pretty professional. And he has a quick turnaround time and his prices are super fair.
It's you, Madison, Garrett, Max, and Jeremy, and Evan Shiat?
When Madison got busy with work and couldn't help finish all the songs, and he had recommended like doing it with Garrett, this kid, Evan Shade, he plays in a band called Chase Petra and he lives in Long Beach. I want to say he might be like 10 years younger than me, but he's just a phenomenal drummer and he teaches drum lessons. And so me and Garrett went to his house in Long Beach and he helped record drum tracks for 3 of the songs. But with the exception of Evan, everyone else who played on the record was like Yorba Linda kids that I've been friends with now for like 15 years.
Madison's playing drums on everything else?
On everything else,
Okay.
Madison was playing drums on. But yeah, I mean, the songs that Madison plays on, like Madison was doing like drums, bass, and electric guitar. Like Madison, for Madison to be able to like learn the song in the morning and then like record the drums and then like in the same day, like write and record bass and guitar for it is just speaks to how good of a musician Madison is.
Yeah.
He's just incredible.
Him and Colin both recording it, right?
Yeah, so
Okay.
it depends on like track by track. So there were certain tracks where like Colin was in the booth recording it, and then there were other tracks where like Colin wasn't there that day, but Madison was like pressing record, walking out to the drum set, like doing the whole thing, and then like standing up from the drum set and going back in and pressing stop. So it just like, yeah, I can't like say, I don't know, I can't speak more highly of Madison. Like he's just super talented.
Do you have one that sticks out to you the most out of this collection of songs, out of these 10?
That song Falling, Garrett recorded like a guitar riff for it that I just feel like sounds really good. Like I've never had songs that like feel like proper rock songs. Even if you don't like the vocals or the lyrics, if you were to take me out of it, it's like some of these songs like really rock. Like the drums hit hard and the guitar sounds big and I've never had songs that sound like that before. So these are the first like probably recordings that I'm like not embarrassed to show people.
Yeah.
Which is maybe why I was happier to like reach out to you and share them via email with you. But yeah, I'm like really stoked on these songs and the way they sound.
All right, and without any further ado, the next song is Falling, and it is track 5 off the album The Daily Reminder of My Failed Folk Career, now streaming on romancandles.bandcamp.com. Run it up.
Off the ground when you were crying. Well, I made sure that you could cry out loud.
it's just a full record, which is like so nice for me to hear. I think I told you like on our phone call before this, it felt like a roller coaster, you know, you're just kind of like, when we fight, man, you're just like, you're ready to fucking, it's just like, it's here, and then it kind of takes you through this thing, and then Barbara, and then ending on Eating for Two is like, whoa, man, this is an emotional roller coaster.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I really wanted to have a 10-song record. Like, I didn't want to have 11 songs, nothing. Like, the last two records were 14, and I feel like
Yeah.
when I listen back, I'm just like, oh, I would cut this song, I would cut that song. Like, it didn't need to be 14 songs in either case. And this one, yeah, I just wanted it to be 10 songs, and I wanted it to be under 25 minutes. Just because, like, me personally, that's my attention span. When a record is like over in like 25 minutes or less, like, I can do that on like a quick walk to like the supermarket, or on like my bike ride to work.
Yeah.
It's like if I'm driving to the grocery store, like, it's like 25 minutes is a perfect length. And then like the songs themselves, yeah, I feel like what you're hinting at in terms of the dynamics of them, it kind of changes a little bit from song to song. I guess my fear was like it was going to end up sounding like a shitty mixtape, because like it goes from like a rock song to like a acoustic folk song or whatever, but I'm happy with the way it kind of ebbs and flows. I think the dynamic or the pace of the record kind of doesn't get boring.
Why would you think it would sound like a shitty mixtape? Because it's
A lot of my favorite records, like, it's just like one sound like all the way through. They have a sound and it's good, and it's consistently like that's a good sounding record.
yeah.
I can't really think of like a lot of my favorite records where like the song or the genre changes from song to song. If there's an advantage to it, it doesn't get like boring necessarily. So I don't know, it's give or take, but I never know what people might think when they hear it, but I'm stoked on it.
No, because I mean, that's the thing too with like making stuff and putting it out. You spend so much time writing it, recording it, tweaking it, mixing it, mastering it. Once it's out, it's just like, it's done. You kind of have to detach from it, kind of like on to the next one.
Yeah.
But it's released. You release it on Bandcamp and you're not on streaming services. Would you ever think to put it on a streaming service?
Yeah, I'm not like entirely opposed to it, but you have to pay like $15 a year, which is not very much money to like upload your stuff. But it's like, I just don't know how many streams I would need for me to make $15 back. And it's like, at that point, is it even like worth it?
10 million?
Yeah, like, do I have any friend who's making $15 a year on Spotify to like justify uploading their songs? I don't know. And
Yeah.
so I just don't know if it's like, to a certain extent, I would just be playing the game just to play the game. I'm happy to have a tape out to like hand to my friends.
Yeah.
I guess that's what I'm like most stoked on, to be like, oh, I think these songs sound a lot better than stuff I've done in the past. And to like be able to reach out to you who like saw like the earliest versions of this band, to be like, oh, like, let me know what you think. And then to have nice feedback and you say it sounds like way better has felt really good, I guess. So to answer your question, not opposed to like uploading it to streaming services. Don't know if it's worth it entirely.
Well, I can tell you right now, it is not.
I mean, I get it. I get why bands need to do it, but I think maybe if the timing was different, or if I was younger and I wanted this to like be my job, I would feel differently about it, but this doesn't like need to be my job.
I think it's cool that you're still doing things DIY and doing it how you want to do it, because the game is not sustainable for like anybody, from the biggest artists down to small independent people putting out self-release work. It's not sustainable. First of all, shout out Bandcamp, because Bandcamp fucking rules. And also just having a physical copy of something that you made that you can actually hand out to people, I think is way better than being on Spotify or Apple Music.
Yeah, for me, it's just nice to be able to like, send a friend a tape in the mail.
Yeah.
It feels good, It's like and it's especially with like maybe people I haven't talked to in a while, it's like a nice reason to like reach out, to be like, hey, I recorded this. Let me know what you think, And it's like, oh, wow, I haven't talked to you in forever. Those conversations are really nice,
I'm still waiting on the Maximum Rock and Roll review of this album, dude.
I don't know that. Yeah, we'll see.
But no, a funny story of like one of my first trips to New York before I like moved out here. I might have told you this, but I remember going to like this outdoor record store, and I don't even know what part. It was definitely in Brooklyn, but I picked up a Maximum Rock and Roll, and it was the issue that you interviewed Fury in. Yeah, I just remember because I think at this point, you were probably 2018, maybe.
Hmm.
Which is, I don't know, which is why I'm glad you did this interview and yada yada, because, we all come from the same place and sometimes you're friends based off proximity. That only has so much longevity, but I feel like with you, you're someone that I can continually call a friend and like, do stuff like this, agree to sit for 3 hours on some IT bullshit. But yeah, I thought that was another thing. I was like, damn. And so I didn't buy it, but I just read it. And I remember like, I think whoever I was with at the time was still trying to like search for records and stuff. And I was just like reading Maximum Rock and Roll because you did the article with Fury. You did someone else too, right?
Yeah, I
And
did Forced Order, which was
Force
like
Order.
I interviewed. It was Mike Cesario and then Kyle Thomas who played in Creatures before that.
Hmm.
That's the coolest thing I've ever heard. That like, yeah, you happen to be at a record store and see like an interview that I wrote. So yeah, it felt really cool. And like, I'm sad that Maximum Rock and Roll doesn't exist because they were like willing to like print stuff you would send them.
Yeah, I just love this record. And are you planning to play shows? You put out the tapes. It's on Bandcamp. It's live. It's released a week and a half ago. What's the next steps? Are you planning anything as far as like record release shows or?
I mean, I'm hoping to play shows for this record. I don't have anything planned like at the moment, but I'm definitely hoping to play some shows around it. Nothing like super concrete, but just working on those 2 good songs a year for that next record 5 years from now.
You can see it, you getting older, getting better, and more selective. And obviously, like you mentioned, the last 2 records or whatever was 14 songs. Some songs didn't need to be on there. And this was just like all killer, no filler. 10
Yeah,
songs, 25 minutes.
that's what I was hoping for. Just banger after banger after banger, 10 times in a row for 25 minutes. Uh, yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, when I was in Budapest, like I was writing, like I'm still writing and yeah, just trying to write a good pop song. Hopefully might take another 15 years, but I'm just hoping for one good pop song.
Like you said, you don't need to, like, if you started this if you were younger and maybe you would consider putting it on streaming things, but this isn't like, you're not doing this for a means to an end. You're just doing it because like it's in you to do.
Yeah, it's like for the love of the craft, right? Like just trying to like literally get better at writing a song.
Yeah.
Just thinking about song structure and lyrics and like editing the right turn of phrase, trying to learn how to like build a bridge after the second chorus, just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
You just try to get better at it.
When you do play shows for this record, do you think it'll be a full band?
I've thought a lot about it, and I think it would probably realistically just still be me. I'm not opposed to it, but I've seen other friends do this, and it's just hard to convince other people to come play for you when you're not going to get paid at the show and you're not going to be able to pay your friends who
Yeah.
just like not only gave up their Friday or Saturday night to like play for your band and potentially play for not very many people. And there's a lot to ask out of other
I get
people.
it.
I feel
Yeah,
like
yeah.
putting people out. And I have friends that have like been like, oh, I'll do it. I would love to play in your band. And I just feel bad about it, you know? The other thing is like, I've played in bands where like if someone else screws up, I get really mad, you know? And it's like I don't want to end up being mad because someone didn't like learn the song well. It's just a lot of like,
It's a lot to ask.
yeah, totally. And it's
Yeah.
like if I screw up during a song, like it's fine because it's me screwing it up. But yeah, like I don't know. And I don't really like practicing.
Yeah.
But like I don't know, like I don't want to show up to like a garage space on a Thursday after work and then have to sit and wait because like someone showed up a half hour late. Like
Yeah.
it's just, there's just a lot of like being in a band is hard.
Yeah, yeah.
And then like asking someone to be in like your part-time band as a favor is like even different.
For sure.
So I'm not opposed to like playing a full band show, but I just it's a lot to ask out of other people.
No, that's because yeah, in my mind it was thinking like, yeah, we'll get the full band, and that's how the record's recorded. We'll play it. But then in reality, hearing what you just said sounds like a fucking headache and a lot to put on people.
Yeah, and it's like how many times like do you have to practice before you play the show?
Yeah,
What happens if that show doesn't go well? Do you then have to like tell your friend that you're kicking them out of the band to get a different drummer? I don't know that it's like
yeah,
worth
yeah. No, no, totally. I completely understand.
the dream is there. I would love for it to like just work and for it to be easy, but
Yeah,
yeah, man, we're living in California in this dystopia where gas is $7 a gallon and asking people to like drive like no one lives in the same town
yeah,
anymore, you know?
yeah,
It's like someone's driving from like LA and someone's driving from like Huntington Beach to like
yeah,
meet, try to meet somewhere in the middle to practice. It's just a ton of moving parts to like then play a show for 10 people.
yeah. No, I
Yeah.
totally get it.
To be like, sorry, I can't pay you guys, but thank you so much for playing.
In this economy,
Yeah.
sometimes beer and a pizza won't do it, man.
It's a lot to ask out of other people. That's a huge ask. Other people are giving up their free time so you can play a rock show. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's what it is. I don't know.
No, it is, man. It is. And I realized how like insane that sounds now that we're like not in college or high school, you know? It's like, what the like everyone's
Yeah,
has bills to
because
pay and a life
no,
to
totally.
live.
Like there was a time in my life where it was like, dude, yeah, let's just keep going. Like you'll just
Yeah.
practice like till late in the in the morning or whatever. But it just yeah, I don't know. I don't know that a lot of people want to do that.
No, for sure. For sure. The record's great.
Thank
I
you. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I don't want to like end it on a downer. I'm
No, no,
stoked.
no.
And
Because
I would be stoked to play shows solo. I think the answer to your question is if I play a show, it'll probably just be me and an acoustic guitar. I've
I
never
love it.
too much context for like why trying to do a full band doesn't make sense, but I hope it makes sense why it doesn't make sense.
It absolutely does. Yeah, the daily reminder of my failed folk career. Listen now on Bandcamp, romancandles.bandcamp.com. It's phenomenal. But I also wanted to end it because we never got the chance to talk about the book that you're currently working on.
Started out with one idea and then you do an interview, and every single interview I've done, people have been like, oh, you should talk to this person, you should talk to this person. But essentially the idea is to like do an interview about the bands from my high school, which is Esperanza High School in Anaheim. And I've gone back in terms of interviews, like all the way back to the 70s. So the earliest interview I've done is someone from the graduating class of 76. And so at this point, I've done almost like 60 interviews for it. I've read a lot of music books before, a lot of like oral history books. Sometimes it's on a particular genre or particular record label or like a scene, but nothing I've ever read has been as specific as like one high school. And so I think that there's like a novelty in that of just like, 40 years of people from Anaheim, Placentia, and Yorba Linda who all went to this high school that ended up playing in bands. I also think there's something cool about the fact that like a lot of these bands like maybe never recorded or maybe they only put out a demo, but like no one can find that demo anymore. I think there's something cool about like a 3-chord high school punk band that inspired other bands. There was like a lot of local bands that came out of our high school that made me want to play music, and it was kind of like an ode to that.
When the day comes that you do put it out, it wouldn't be under like the Stowaways, right? It would be like a book.
I think, I mean, at this point, I have like a rough draft written, and there's still a few more interviews that I need to do that I would like to do. But yeah, it's pretty long. And then like almost everyone that I interview has been super kind in like wanting to share photographs or wanting to share different things. So it's like if you include even like one photograph for each band, it's a big thing. I think it would be too big to like for it to just be a zine. But yeah, I don't know. I've never put out a book before, so I'm gonna have to figure out how to do it. But
Yeah.
I would say I'm like not quite there yet. But like when I was in Budapest, like I did edit all the interviews down and put them in order and break them down by bands. So there is like a rough draft and a structure and like chapters. It's getting there. It's like way closer at the end than it is from the beginning.
So far, you're at 60 interviews with it.
Yeah.
And then
Uh-huh.
you said you have a few more. Who are the last few interviews? Or even if you know, like when do you know to cut it off? And
For me, it's just a matter of like wanting to be able to interview like at least one person from a few different bands that I haven't interviewed anyone from that band for yet.
uh-huh.
Ideally, like I would have loved to have talked to everyone, but like some people don't want to do the interview or some people don't check social media or ever write you back. It's hard. Some of the interviews you just can't do, but there are a few bands where I haven't interviewed anyone from that band that I would still like to interview at least one person from. And I've got about like 4 or 5 bands left that I would like to write about.
What are the bands?
So Ethan Flake played in a band called Sons of Thunder, and I'd like to like still talk to Ethan. Heather Welch played in an all-girl band called the Dead Dollies.
Uh-huh.
Still like to interview. They were a three-piece, but I'd like to interview, if not Heather, then someone else from that band. And then the metalcore stuff, like Unite and Conquer and De Blair and Belay My Last. I haven't interviewed anyone from those bands. So as far as like bands that I still want to touch on, it's kind of like that group of band.
Okay.
So I'm almost like at the end, and then I'd like to speak to Aaron Romberg from the Screaming Sphincters.
And you've already reached out to some?
To Ethan, yeah, we've talked over text, but I know he's married and has kids, and people are busy, you know.
Right, right, right.
So it's just like trying to schedule and yeah, go from there. Yeah, hopefully I'll finish sooner than later because I'm
Yeah.
like I've been working on it now for over 3 years. I'm excited. I feel like I tell people about it and I talk about it a lot, but I'm excited to kind of wrap it up and share it with people.
Dude, that's insane. What
Yeah.
wait, what was the band from 74?
I spoke to this guy, Georgie Seiss, who graduated in 1977 and he played for a band called Abyss. And unfortunately, the guitar player from that band has passed away. The guitar player and the drummer went to Esperanza, but the guy I spoke to, George, actually graduated from El Dorado. But it was cool because when I interviewed him, he said that his brother was like one of the original members of, I believe, Agent Orange. And so the band practices, they would share the garage space with like Abyss and Agent Orange. So there's like a cool Orange County punk connection going all the way back. And I think by focusing like specifically on a high school, you get like fun stories like that that would get left out if you were just like writing a book about like the history of punk rock in Orange County or something, you know? People have done that and you touch on the bigger bands.
Yeah. I know you've had this idea. Did you even know you were doing this? Like, were you already just like interviewing people from this scene, not knowing what it was going to be? Like, what was your initial, like,
I knew kind of like where I wanted to start. Like I wanted to start with doing an interview with Ian Fowles from Death by Stereo, who now plays guitar for the Aquabats. Because in my mind, like Death by Stereo was one of the earliest bands from Esperanza. But doing that interview with Ian, he's like, oh no, you need to talk to this person, and this person. And then you end up doing those 3 interviews and you realize like, oh no, they weren't the earliest band. Like these other bands were also putting out 7 inches, and then you talk to those bands and it's like, well, those bands were putting out demo tapes, and then it just went further and further back.
yeah. Do you have any interviews that kind of like struck you where you're just like, oh man, I can't believe I'm like interviewing this person? Or like,
Yeah, a few times. Like I would say with surprises, like one of the things that I didn't know about was like the original bass player from Guttermouth went to Esperanza, and I didn't know that anyone from Guttermouth went to my high school. So speaking to him, finding out about this band called Heavy Dirt that shared members with DI, and they put out like this amazing 12-inch EP that's kind of like a little more metallic version of punk in the 80s. So finding out that like, oh, a high school band in the 80s put out like a 12-inch EP and it's good was like really amazing. And then, I mean, there were bands that I knew from Esperanza, of people that I wanted to talk to, like Death by Stereo and people from Atreyu, and like talking to Nathan from Cold War Kids and Andy and Joey from the Henry Clay people. Like that was kind of where my thought process was on like the bigger bands, but I feel like it's gone in a lot of different directions. And I think the things that have been most fun about doing these interviews for me was finding out about a random hardcore band from the early 90s that put out a 7-inch. And it's like, oh, then like going and finding and picking up a copy of that 7-inch and listening to it and, reading the liner notes and seeing who they think. And it's just been really fun for
Yeah.
me. And like speaking to some guy who was playing in a punk band in the 80s at Esperanza that was like, oh, we never like recorded or released anything, but we have like an interview in Flipside, which was like a big punk magazine from LA. And then it's like trying to track down that issue of Flipside and read that interview.
So you were able to find it?
Yeah. And so it's like, it's taken me in different directions. And it's just been, for me, like a really fun project that I don't know will amount to much more than 100 copies of a book or something that I give to friends. But it's definitely been like the longest project I've ever worked on. And I'm, trying to see it through still.
Yeah.
It's like having never written a book or like, I've read a lot of books, but it's like, I don't know. I don't think it's going to be a book that someone reads from cover to cover. I think it's going to be a book where someone picks up and wants to check out like an interview with a couple members of a particular band. It's been really cool to get to do these interviews and hear people tell their stories and stuff.
Kind of summarize this up as just like your DIY spirit of just doing something, whether you've written a book or not, and you're still doing it, whether like if it goes back to making a record, it's like just kind of building the plane while flying. I think something that's been consistent through just your output of your art, your work and stuff like that. And I think that's really admirable, man. And it's very inspiring for me as a friend to see it. And just as, a patron of your work and stuff like that, I think it's awesome, man. And I thank you for doing all that and doing it in a way that is, still punk rock. And whether it's making a book or making music, you still are doing something that is totally you and is fucking awesome.
Thank you, Ian. Yeah, no, that's really nice. Was super happy to have this conversation with you. So thank you for having me and bearing with me through all the hurdles.
Dude, thank you for doing it. You just put out the record, The Daily Reminder of My Failed Folk Career. You can listen to it on Bandcamp, romancandles.bandcamp.com. You can also check out your work zine, the Stowaways zine, on Fuck the Stowaways, oneword.blogspot.com. I mean, just as much as you've been putting out music, you've been doing this fanzine with the same gusto and passion that you do your music. And I want people to check that out too.
Thank you, Ian. I really appreciate it.
And that's a wrap. Thanks again, Chris, for coming on. We're going to close it out with the last song on the record titled Eating for Two off his latest release, The Daily Reminder of My Failed Folk Career. You can head over to romancandles.bandcamp.com to purchase a physical copy of the tape or download the album digitally, and also check out the rest of his discography that we talked about in this episode. Thanks for listening. Peace.
Are you scared we lost our window? That we waited too long? Or are you scared of what would happen if it happened again? Are you scared of feeling pressured? Are you scared that you won't love me? Are you scared of waking up and never being happy? Are you scared of the pain, the fear of being blamed? Or are you scared of what it means to never wanna try again? Are you scared of being scared? Or are you scared of the truth that you were eating for two and now it's just me and you? Scared our times run up? Are you scared our clocks run out? Are you scared of what it means to never wanna leave the house? Are you scared of feeling guilty? somehow it's your fault? Or are you scared that you might blame me when it's all said and done? Are you scared that if it works, but it turns out it's not healthy, that this was all a sign that we shouldn't make